Ladies and gentlemen, when somebody asks you, well, why would you vote for President Trump? In addition to being the first president to step foot in North Korea, to begin détente between North and South Korea, where President Moon Jae-in of South Korea stated that President Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, and you look at what's taking place, although there are obstacles, President Moon Jae-in of South Korea has stated he envisions an Olympic team with North Korean and South Korean athletes, a joint North and South Olympic team. Okay, you can look that up. That was never ever possible under any other president. That alone is a greater achievement than anything that happened during President Obama's administration. Certainly a greater achievement than anything that happened in Bush's administration, the worst president we've ever had. Cheney, Rumsfeld, Bush started the era of never-ending military conflict and counterinsurgency quagmires, predicated on intelligence failures. That's in addition to all of that. If anybody asks you, well, why would you vote for President Trump? You say he's going up against a very, very corrupt intelligence system with corrupt intelligence officials who actually got duped or who allowed themselves or who didn't care. They either were deceived or they either didn't really care if they were deceived or not, because the goal was to set up and frame Trump simply to justify losing. So it wasn't that Hillary Clinton lost, it was that Russia stole the election. They're going with Clinton as the nominee. Hillary Clinton is going to be the nominee. She could actually become president. If you don't take it seriously when they hand the keys to Madam Secretary, she could become president. I give her a 20% chance. The prophecy, the H.A. Goodman prophecy, the prediction, just like when NPR quoted me, and I was right in 2015, that Clinton couldn't win, she was unelectable, she would lose swing states. It really doesn't matter whether she loses again or not. She'll run again in 2024. That's completely and utterly irrelevant. Just like NPR quoted me and 538, and 538 said that Trump wouldn't be GOP nominee, I will be right again. This is the biggest political prediction of all time. It's now like a prophecy. It's the H.A. Goodman prophecy. And Clinton is going to be nominee. It's going to happen at the convention, the centennial of the 19th Amendment. They're not going to go with Biden, who has a criminal complaint for assault. But anyway, I'm going to read you this National Review article. They were duped or deceived or willingly or didn't care pertaining to a dossier, Steele Dossier, that was just nonsense. It was just gossip and nonsense. It was fantasy, probably Bill Clinton's fantasy. Oh, I love those things. I love just being in a hotel room in Moscow and taking a nice, beautiful shower. Oh, the golden arches. That was complete fantasy. Where is the dossier on Madam Secretary? Could you imagine if there was a dossier on Madam Secretary that Trump purchased or the RNC purchased? Could you imagine? And then a Republican president's FBI utilized the dossier. Look, they're completely disingenuous and duplicitous. Democrats, when it's always believe when it's a Supreme Court nominee who's or conservative Supreme Court nominee. When it's Biden, the actors and the celebrities don't care. Gosh, and the New York Times and Washington Post say, gosh, we got to really investigate these allegations. It's never believe when it's a Democrat facing allegations. It's never it's never foreign interference when the DNC and Clinton purchase a dossier compiled, according to Vanity Fair, with help from an active Russian intelligence official. Okay, it's never cheating when they just overtly cheat Bernie Sanders and Debbie Wasserman Schultz is forced to resign. It's never a pandemic where you could risk life and limb when it's raining and there's 2-inch hail pelting people in the rain as they're wearing masks, completely drenched, because they're in the Wisconsin primary trying to vote for Biden because they despise Bernie so much, not because of Biden, or they despise Trump. Notice how the Wisconsin Democratic Party never postponed. They could have canceled or postponed. If the choice was risking people's lives or health or canceling a primary, what do you think they chose? Maybe the whole thing is a bunch. Then you have Arizona, Florida, and Michigan. Illinois, Arizona, and Florida primaries of March 17th during the pandemic, where they just had to vote. They didn't really care about if it was the choice between knocking Bernie Sanders out of contention and unifying around Biden. Then they chose the political course of action, not safety. So you better believe if Clinton were president, do you think they would be, we can't open the economy? Look how duplicitous and disingenuous and hypocritical they've been. It doesn't, when it's them, there's a different standard. So of course they would desperately reopen the economy sooner rather than later. I don't even know if California and New York would be completely shut down. Probably New York, who knows? With Democrats, who knows? But here, the National Review, outlets that covered Steele Dossier during Russiagate go silent as Steele's ties to Kremlin revealed. Many of the same news outlets that provided comprehensive coverage of Christopher Steele's opposition research dossier during special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. By the way, President Trump was not impeached on anything to do with collusion. Well, he wasn't impeached on anything to do with a legal statute being broken. There was no criminal act that they impeached Trump on. There was literally no criminal act. But here, many of the same news outlets that provided comprehensive coverage of Christopher Steele's opposition research dossier during special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation have yet to cover newly declassified information that indicates the much-publicized Steele dossier contained Russian disinformation. They literally allowed themselves to be duped just to get after Trump. Just because you had agents from Comey to Strzok, we saw his text message, "We'll stop Trump." Imagine if they said, "We'll stop Clinton." With all of this, flip the script. Imagine if it's "We'll stop Clinton." But here, in response to requests from Senator Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson, the Department of Justice on April 10th declassified 4 footnotes included in Inspector General Michael Horace's report on FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation as of Thursday, 6 days after the footnotes became public. The New York Times is the only mainstream outlet to cover the development. A host of other outlets that closely followed the Russiagate story and reported constantly on information related to the Steele findings have thus far ignored the new information. Of the newly declassified footnotes, footnote 350 states that FBI received reports in 2017, quote, indicating the potential for Russian disinformation influencing Steele's election reporting. Quote, it's ironic that the Russian collusion narrative was fatally flawed because of Russian disinformation, Grassley and Johnson said in a statement following the release. Quote, these footnotes confirm that there was a direct Russian disinformation campaign in 2016, and there were ties between Russian intelligence and a presidential campaign, the Clinton campaign, not Trump's. You have vanity. I quoted this even before. I was kind of onto this even before the footnotes. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I kept saying, look at there's a Vanity Fair article that I would always read. And in the Vanity Fair article, well, it's actually within the Steele dossier itself, they're proud of the fact that an active Russian intelligence official is one of the people who helped compile the dossier for Christopher Steele, or who was a source in the dossier. First of all, it's a bunch of nonsense. You could write it on toilet paper. The word dossier is just a way of saying, oh my goodness, this is really important information. You should really just call it a roll of toilet paper, with a bunch of verbal refuse. That's what the Steele dossier is. Okay, but anyway, a further release on Wednesday detailed how Russian intelligence knew of Steele's efforts as early as July 2016, and that a subsource for Steele's primary contact was associated with an individual in the Russian presidential administration in June-July 2016 and voiced, quote, strong support for candidate Clinton in the 2016 elections. BuzzFeed, which published the entire dossier composed by former British spy Christopher Steele in January 7, 2017, CNN, the Washington Post, Politico, and other outlets still have yet to cover the developments, despite widely circulating his claims following the release of a dossier, which played a central and essential role in obtaining FISA warrants against the 2016 Trump campaign. When it was convenient, they touted and championed and publicized and spread the disinformation from Russia in the guise, under the pretext of undermining the Trump campaign. The notion, by the way, that, this is national security. It is not national security if a private political entity The DNC, we learned from the DNC fraud lawsuit, is a private entity. They said we can pick our a nominee in smoke-filled back rooms like Tammany Hall in the 1800s. We can do that. They can do that. It is a private entity. A private entity being hacked by any country or any organization is not national security. You can't completely define foreign policy and national security because the DNC or the RNC were hacked. Do you think they would have investigated Clinton with a special counsel if the RNC was allegedly hacked by Russia and information about the RNC trying to cheat a candidate, let's say Trump, was disseminated? Do you think? First of all, they're only highly to moderately confident about that, which is another reason they shouldn't have investigated President Trump. The whole thing was nonsense. He was set up. But imagine if the script were reversed. Of course they wouldn't care. They never care when it's them. When it's them being accused of assault allegations. When it's them working with Russia. We have right here. Or Ukraine. It's never when they're the ones being accused, or when they're the ones who find it politically expedient to do something, having a primary during a pandemic, they say, oh, it's no problem. But the economy, see, their whole thing is that you can't open up the economy, but you can vote in Wisconsin. How does that work? Then they spin it to, well, people don't want to be disenfranchised. It's like, no, yeah, and people don't want to starve. People want to afford. They're like, well, you're getting payments from the government. Yeah, but people want to work. Democrats, at the end of the day, either subliminally or tacitly or subconsciously, they just want to tank Trump. They just want to tank Trump's economy even further. And now, the economy, by the way, is going to rebound very quickly. Once the spigot is opened up, the floodgates, once economic activity resumes, and people, can live life normally, you're going to see a huge increase or spike in GDP and in the economy. Okay? Then they'll say it's President Obama's economy again. But here, in February 2017, CNN cited anonymous officials who had corroborated some of Steele's claims for the first time, giving them greater confidence about the dossier's credibility. And whose television anchors have insisted multiple times that much of the dossier has been corroborated. No, that's not true. It was never true. They always pointed to, the Russians did try to buy Facebook ads. They're not even certain about that. They just indicted people. Simply indicting Russian intelligence officials is not evidence. It is not evidence. You're indicting based on Company 1. If you read the indictments, it's based on Company 1. Company 1 was CrowdStrike. It's a company outsourced by the Democratic Party. Then they say you have Vice and BuzzFeed and all of these. You have all of these outlets saying, they got pristine images of the DNC servers. How do you know? The United States government has to guarantee or has to state with certainty. Nobody has stated with certainty that any of this happened. When there is a bank robbery or a break-in in Watergate or something taking place, there's a crime that certainly happened. They don't even know if Russia hacked the DNC or if Russia actually purchased the Facebook ads because they're confident to moderately to highly confident, and then they're relying on Company 1, which is CrowdStrike. The United States government is not saying, we stand by these claims 100%. I wonder why. Then you have agents who, from Kevin Kleinsmith to Peter Strzok, you see the internal text messages where they're all upset Trump won. I mean, it's like, what more do you need? William Barr and John Durham know what's going on. This is all a charade, just like the primary's a charade. I'm the only person on planet Earth telling you what's actually taking place. Hillary Clinton is going to be nominee. When she's nominee, everyone will be shocked except people who watch this channel. It will be the biggest political prediction of all time. It's basically a prophecy. It's like the H.A. Goodman prophecy. The only thing that's not a prophecy is I am 80% certain. I'm like the ODNI report. I'm 80% certain that President Trump will win. I can't guarantee you that President Trump will win. I can guarantee you that Clinton will be nominee because she's the only chance they have. Biden wouldn't even get the popular vote. Okay, he wouldn't even get the popular vote. Biden would not even get the popular vote. But anyway, in 2018, the Washington Post published an intricate timeline of Steele's 17 reports to the FBI, which were compiled into a dossier and reinforced the U.S. intelligence claim the Russians engaged in an elaborate operation to swing the election to Trump. Well, how? By reporting on the corruption, by discovering corruption within the Democratic Party. How does that even work? How much of an imbecile, how much of an ignoramus do you have to be to think that it's a Russian plot when you find out that the DNC was corrupt? What is wrong with you emotionally if you have to believe that because you can't stand losing to Trump? And look, 15 minutes in, this is a public service announcement. I'll do this to my 15-minute crowd. I love you. God bless you. Don't ever, 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 ever engage, discuss, argue, debate with anyone who has derangement issues pertaining to Trump. Don't do it with family members. Don't do it with friends. Don't do it with spouses. Okay? Because they're begging for an opportunity to never speak to you again. And it won't be your fault. They're begging for an opportunity to condemn or to judge or demean or insult or mock or denigrate. They're begging for an opportunity. Don't do it. Don't do it. From here until the election, and God willing, President Trump wins. Now I'm saying God willing. I'm not 100% sure. My prediction is that President Trump is going to win. But Clinton could win. Hillary Clinton could win. And when Clinton becomes nominee, yeah, not only come back to this channel because I'm the only person in all of YouTube to say what's actually happening, but I'm telling you she could possibly win. You have to take it seriously. You have to vote. This is the biggest election of our lifetime. This is the biggest election of our lifetime. The biggest election of our lifetime. And you have to tell people, well, if you want an end to never-ending military conflict and never-ending counterinsurgency conflict, the Max Boot and Bill Kristol foreign policy, which is apparently Bernie's foreign policy because he's voting for the same candidate, Biden will pass the baton to Hillary, and then they'll all vote for Hillary. This whole thing's a charade. Why anyone would take this seriously after what we've already learned is beyond me. But anyway, if you don't want that kind of foreign policy, and if you don't want corrupt intelligence officials, then vote for President Trump. But it's the biggest election of our lifetime. But ladies and gentlemen, this was all a charade it was all a charade from the very beginning. And what took place is Putin and Russia, they knew that Democrats would be scorned. They didn't have to think. I mean, you're talking about these people are masters at chess, okay? You don't have to think that many moves ahead, okay? It's like, look, the plan obviously was, well, you know what? If Democrats lose, almost certainly they're going to go after Trump, and then they're going to say there's going to have to be some kind of intelligence report or some kind of excuse to go after Trump. So then Christopher Steele is outsourced by Clinton. Christopher Steele is influenced by Russian disinformation. They go ahead and put information within the Steele Dossier that makes it even more absurd, where they actually know what's in the dossier because they're the ones putting the information in, and Steele is just compiling it, saying yes, okay. And then the U.S. intelligence, the wonderful, oxymoron, they're saying, oh my God, look at this dossier, we're using it, and then they use it to undermine our democracy. You know who undermined our democracy? People like Kevin Kleinsmith and Peter Strzok and Andrew McCabe and James Comey. It wasn't Russia. No country could undermine our democracy if we find out that there's corruption within the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. You think Democrats would care if every country on the planet hacked the RNC? They would be happy. They'd be like, oh, fantastic. Thank you, other countries, for hacking the RNC. This is fantastic. But with them, it's all the Helsinki. Oh, my God. Helsinki summit. Oh, Russia. Trump didn't, drop kick Putin. Didn't get him in a headlock. Oh, my God. Oh, the horror. I mean, they're the most duplicitous people on the planet. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. The Steele Dossier was a setup where Putin basically knew that we needed that Democrats and the establishment needed some way to get after Trump. So he put his input. The Russians put their input, or the disinformation, or whatever. They put information within the Steele Dossier to then control the narrative even more. If they say, if the whole thing is to sow chaos or whatever, or if it's to have the goods on Democrats eventually, when we do find out that a person like Steele is linked to Russian intelligence, which is what we just found out, who knows what exactly the motive was, other than to just manipulate what was going on within the United States government. And which people like Comey and McCabe and Clapper and McCabe and Brennan were more than happy to do, because they knew that they were part of a very corrupt act, and they were part of a system that wouldn't benefit if Trump was in office. Give me your thoughts below. I mean, it's very difficult to wrap my brain around why the FBI and Brennan and all of them would utilize a Steele dossier, knowing, or with either tacit knowledge or being completely duped, that the information they were using to investigate Trump was tarnished or influenced by Russian intelligence. So, in an effort to go after Trump and find his ties with Russia, Putin actually fostered that notion. So you wrap your minds around that. Give me your thoughts below. This is an important segment. Share this segment everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. This is really important to my 21-minute crowd. I do not have a Twitter account. If you see anyone on Twitter, please report the profile to Twitter support. Thank you very much. If you want to support my voice long-term, my Patreon is below. Subscribe right now to H.A. Goodman's other channel. Thank you so very, very much.